Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Hi, my name is Pam Collins. I live here in Staples, Minnesota, and I am a mosaic artist. And I've been doing art for, oh my gosh, since I can remember, like most artists. And I got interested in mosaics just by looking at material and reading books and that sort of thing, and it was always something that I was intrigued by. And several years ago, I did a little trivet. I thought, oh, I could try this, and I fell in love with the process. I just really enjoy this whole process because it is just so unpredictable. My work's very organic. Nothing is ever the same. I'm always monkeying around with something and changing something. But just for the sake of time, I did cut these pieces so that they would be ready to roll. So I've got that there. And if I could just remember where all these pieces went, it would be really good. But that's the beauty of it. You just kind of like, oh, well, this works. No, not so much. The best things that we learn in art and in life in general is the mistakes that we make. And hopefully we figure out what not to do the next time. I am not a puzzle person. I don't do crossword puzzles or any of that kind of stuff. But I love, love, love this gluing. See, this piece is already stuck pretty good, but I want to move it. So I'm going to move it there. All right, so there. So now I've got this little itty bitty space here. So here's a perfect example. Okay, I want to fill that space in, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to use? And I have this piece, but it's really, well, maybe. Let me see if I can get this in here to make it look right. Yep, that works. Okay, so now I'm going to glue this here. I can move things around pretty easily for quite a while, actually. So I want to fill this piece in, and I see it's kind of a triangular shape. So I'm going to give this a whack here and hope that I get a piece that's going to work. Let's see. Oh, perfection. Okay, excellent. All right, so I have that. I glue that. And there we go. So there's my E. I will often lay pieces next to it to see, okay, what works really good. I was doing a house number for somebody, and I just could not decide what color the background should be. And so I took several different colors before I decided. And oddly enough, it was a color that I would not have thought of to put in there, and it worked great. So if I took this, now see, and if I did this with this, see, it just doesn't, to me, I was like, oh, that's pretty boring. So you want the word to pop out, and so I'm gonna do dominantly darks. So what I do is in my little workspace here, I have my trusty dusty little paint cans to give me some height because I wanna grout all the way around this. So now I'm taking pre-mixed grout. Now I am putting this on white because I personally like the process of painting my grout. And because I'm dealing with different heights, it makes it a little bit more complicated in getting in all the grooves and slots and that. And when I'm working on the edges, I want to, you don't just grout the top, you gotta grout the side, because otherwise you're just gonna have your tiles standing out there with nothing. And that will not look pretty. Now I'm really going to take my finger, and I just like doing it with my finger because I can feel where the tiles are high and where they're low. And I will continue to do this until I can pretty much see all the tiles. So this is it. So now I'm gonna let this dry. I will probably let this dry until probably later this afternoon, and then I will come back with a wet rag and wipe off all the excess. And then I will wait until tomorrow to paint this. I could let this sit for a week and come back to it and say, I'm gonna paint it. So that's the grouting process. It's not too bad, but it's definitely messy. Okay, so here's my other piece. So I haven't done anything to the back, but I've grouted the sides. And now I know already that this is a lake scene, then there's trees, and there's trees back here, and there's a sky. So I already know that I am going to lay in blues and some teal colors in here. And I'm gonna do some browns here for the rocks. And I will do greens here and greens here. And it's not, again, it's not coloring book coloring, because it doesn't make any difference whether the colors kind of melt into each other, because in a painting you want that to happen because it unifies the whole thing. This process is really hit or miss. There's some control, but not a lot of control. And I like the fact that there's not a lot of control in it, because the best, for me, I believe that the best artwork that I do is when I am not overly concerned about the process. Then I will come back with a wet rag and a sponge, and I will clean off all of the tiles. So there you can see a little bit more of it, but this will get richer and deeper as the paint dries. And then again, it's kind of like unwrapping a Christmas present. You see, as you wipe away each tile, and you see the beauty of it. And then after I've painted the back of it with hodgepodge of paint, whatever I want to do, I will put my little screw eyes in there and put a little wire on there, and it's ready to hang and sell it to somebody.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org. If you have segment ideas pertaining to North Central Minnesota, contact us at legacy@lptv.org. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund by the vote of the people on November 4th, 2008.
We are going to do some pieces that Alfred Johnson wrote. He's a musician and a composer in the area, and he wrote these pieces for choral group, but he gave us his permission to use his music today so that we could play some things together for you. 3, 4. I'm Carol Harrison, and I'm a harpist in the Brainerd area. We've lived up here for about 20 years. Before that, I played harp in St. Louis Park. I'm really happy to tell everybody about what the harp is and how it works. People are always curious about the harp, and I'm happy to be teaching students so that when I quit playing, which might not be too many years, I can be replaced up here. The harp is one of the few instruments that people want to come and examine when you play it. They don't often come up to a flute player and say, "Could I just look at your instrument? Can I see the pads on there? And how many pads are there?" But with a harp, they always come up and they have all kinds of questions that they want to ask. What's it made of? And obviously, they're made of wood. And Sitka spruce is often used for the sounding board because that's so vibrant. And mahogany, maple, many other kinds of wood are used for the column and the neck and everything. They want to know what it costs. And people are a little hesitant to just ask right out what it costs. But the smaller lever harps, to get a good one, would be about $5,000 at least for a new one. There are used ones available, but you're a little risky buying a used one. The large pedal harp like this starts, I think right now, at $27,000, $28,000 to $30,000. They want to know how many strings. That one has 40, those two have 38, and this one has 47, which is a common number for the pedal harps. They want to know what the music looks like, and it looks just like piano music. The only thing that's different is that the harpists never use their little fingers, and you're just sure they do, because when they close their hands like this, it looks like your little finger is playing. They want to know how we move it. This one is quite heavy, and so we put it on a cart and move it out to the van and lift it very carefully into a van on pillows and so forth, so it's not rubbing against anything. These harps I can lift myself, and this one especially is very light, so it's easy for me to move. The harp is a very old instrument, and it's ancient. We've seen pictures of them in Egypt on walls, in their palaces and so forth. And in the Old Testament, it talks about the harp right away in Genesis 4, it talks about Jubal, who was the father of the harps. And we know that harps were used out through the Old Testament for temple worship, and people are familiar with David being called in to play for King Saul because he was so agitated. And so the harp music, it's very comforting and soothing to people. People even called it in the Old Testament, some of the kings, when they had a really important decision to make, to kind of calm them down a little bit so that they could make a good decision. The parts of the harp are the column right here, and this is the bass down here with the feet to help balance it. This is your sounding board, and you can hear it's hollow inside, so you can hear how that really echoes, because that's where all your music is reverberated from. This is called the neck, and this is all your mechanism up here. This is very complicated on this harp because it's a pedal harp, and this has pedals, 7 pedals down here at the bottom. So when you're sitting at the harp, you have 7 pedals and 3 notches for each pedal. So if the pedals are all up, that means there's no pressure on these strings. But if you press the pedal down into the middle slot, you have a natural position. This was flat, C natural, C sharp. So you set your 7 pedals in the key that you want to play in, and then when you have accidentals while you're playing, then you move a pedal. The pedal rods that fasten these to all this mechanism, those 7 rods, which are very, very thin, a little thinner than a pencil, go all the way up here and fasten into all this mechanism that you can see up here. There's many, many moving parts in the top of a pedal harp. The harp can be kind of costly, not only the initial cost of buying a harp, but then the cost of your strings. Strings can get very expensive, especially the large ones. And if you play your harp a lot, you like to replace them every year or maybe every other year for a student. As I demonstrated before, on this harp you use pedals to change your keys. And this harp is made by Lion Healy. It's a prelude harp. The lever harps, you have to change your accidentals manually. And if you want 3 C sharps, you have to play or change all 3 octaves with your fingers sometime when you're playing. So you're very careful, and a lot of the music cannot be transferred to this harp. Otherwise, I will transcribe the music and leave out some of the accidentals or just play it a little differently. So this is tuned in the key of E flat. So I have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. That way I can go to more keys. If I want to play in the key of C, I will raise, since I have E flat, B flat, and A flat, I'll raise E flat, A flat, and B flat. Now I'm in the key of C. And I think I forgot to tell you, these are C's, the red ones are C's, and the blue ones or black ones are F's. And that's simply so you can find your way around. So this harp, to hear how it sounds, since it's an E flat, I play the harp a lot for therapy. I use it in the hospital, and I sometimes go to patients' rooms or up to cancer care where they have to be there for quite a while for chemo. And I play in 2 nursing homes and an Alzheimer unit on a regular basis every week. People can feel it because of the vibrations, and when you think of how our system is made of a lot of water and what sound does to water when you drop a stone in water, you see the little ripples come out. When the harp is played, or any musical instrument, it affects your body. You can feel those vibrations. Right now, this is one of my favorite little harps, and this one is especially resonant too. And you can hear it's a little different sound. It's a very pleasant little harp to play for people. But I want you to hear the difference when I turn it on if I'm going to play it in a large setting where it needs to carry further. I can use the sound equipment, and this is totally electronic. Every string is connected to a transducer, so the whole thing is electronic. So you hear the big difference when it's like that. It just gives it a beautiful, beautiful sound, and it carries a long ways, even a little better than that one does when it's hooked up electronically. But it does take a lot of practice. It's a difficult instrument, and as I said before, the technique is very important. I keep after my students. I always have a lesson plan that we're going to do before they come to their lesson. But sometimes something comes up in their lesson that I just need to correct, and so we just work on that for a while. Now let's start with arpeggios, and we're going to do the 7 chord, and we'll go about this speed. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. They are also learning how to write some music of their own. the last one we'll do is Seed for Peace. This also is by Albert Johnson. And we're still in the same key.
2 and 3 and 4 and
I think it was J.S. Bach who said one time, there's nothing to it playing the music. You just play the right note at the right time.